Is it, we learn from around us. We are human beings, we learn from our environment. But so is it possible that I
Mhm.
could be living someone else's purpose because I look to someone else and I'm influenced by something around them, and because of that, I'm living someone else's purpose? Is that possible?
Right, that is a big one. Um, I don't think we could live out somebody else's purpose, but we can maybe sometimes duplicate it, meaning that we're living a life that is not ours.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony is, many of us are living lives that are not ours. We're living, people like to talk about imposter. The greatest imposter that we can be is when we're walking in our own shoes, but we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And so we may not necessarily live out somebody else's purpose, but we photocopy, we imitate, we do like because we're social creatures. And so we learn vicariously sometimes through others. And so because this person has done or is doing this and it looks successful, I can do something that looks like it to create success. We've been taught that, and that actually works, but that will not bring us closer to purpose. So I might be doing something and be successful at it, but that does not mean that I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And most times we confuse or equate success to meaning we're living in purpose. And that's the mistake that we make, because I could do a lot of things successfully, because let's say we're gifted and there are many things that I can do and do a great job at it, and I can learn all the business strategies and marketing strategies and become successful at it. But at the end of the day, am I feeling fulfilled, or am I just doing it to pay the bills? And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us are living life, for example, we're doing something to pay the bills. We're not feeling fulfilled. We're waking up every day. We're not happy to do what we're meant to do, or what we're doing, either the job, the career, whatever it is. There is not this sense of peace you're feeling and I tell people, when purpose is calling, when you wake up and you're doing something that you're doing well at, you're doing good at it, you're creating success, but you're always feeling unfulfilled. There is something missing. You feel as if this is not it yet, and that's because you're not yet aligned with doing what it is God brought you here into the world to do.
But
When
why do
you
we believe? Why do we believe that God has a purpose for our life? Because you keep focusing on what God wants. Why do you believe that God has a purpose for Dr. Nadine Collins' life, Pastor Terence Brown life, and why do you believe that?
Because of the word. Jeremiah 1:5, he says, I appointed you for something. That is purpose. I appointed you with a specific thing in mind that I wanted you to do in the world. And so that's why I said earlier, we need to start with first understanding who we are. In essence, we are creatures created by God. We're brought here into the world, and we have that clear understanding of who I am as a person, and understanding that I'm here on an assignment. And the Bible speaks about the fact that there is this assignment, but it doesn't tell you what the assignment is. You have to search for it. And most times, to be quite honest, purpose is the closest thing to every single one of us. Because, for example, when I start the book, I talk about purpose. I literally speak of purpose as a visible entity, in the sense that purpose was with me even before I was conceived. Purpose was with me when my parents united in the act that actually created the cell that grew into Nadine. So purpose was there all along. And I speak of purpose as cheering us, for example, along the way, cheering that sperm when it was actually going through the tube, and just cheering me on until it was implanted to be able to now begin to formulate that cell, because purpose was there with us from the beginning. The reason why we lose focus on what our purpose is, or we even lose the sense of looking for it, it's because of how we've been indoctrinated, society, because of how we've been taught. And so I think the closest place to find it is if you go into these preschools, pre-K, and you speak to these kids and they tell you what they want to be when they grow up. A lot of times our eyes open wide when we have children, telling us what they want to be. I was in South Africa in 2019, and I remember going to a few schools. I think it was 3 schools in one day, and I was speaking to these young girls. And I was asking them, what do you want to be when they grow up, right? I was asking that question. And the young ladies did not have the typical responses like when I was a kid. They had more elevated responses, more like streamlined responses. So they would not be like, I want to be a doctor. They'll be like, I want to be a neurosurgeon, or I want to, and they were so clear. And one little girl said, when I grow up, I want to be the Prime Minister of Britain. All of the adults in the room opened their eyes, shocked. And I looked at her and I said, and you can do it. Why? Because there's so many ways a child from South Africa can become the president of, what was the president, the prime minister, she said, of Britain. The point is that we lose sight and we take away, for example, right there in the room, many of us would have wanted to kill the dream and say, that's not possible. You mean you want to be the president of South Africa, not the prime minister of Britain, right? And so the thing is, the children, when we were kids, a lot of the dreams that we had as children, that is taken away from us as we grow and as we're indoctrinated and as we are socialized to be streamlined with what everybody's saying creates success, or who you should be, or these are the correct paths that you can choose from. But purpose takes you on a whole other journey. And that's why when we're pursuing it as adults, when we're going back to really find out what we're meant to do, usually it's so close to us because it's something that has been there with us from a child. It's something that we were already familiar with, that we had to push on the back burner. But it's there in all of us because God created all of us for it.
Yeah, but that is one thing, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. But we are at different places because of how we have been socialized. So therefore, there's a possibility that I may know what my purpose is, or I'm asking her, or could be. But because of how my environment had been, now fear has come into the picture. And because of fear, I cannot achieve what I want to achieve because I was not prepared, or they did not prepare me to achieve what I would like to achieve. Is that possible? Because of fear and different circumstances, I can't achieve that purpose. Speak to that.
Well, usually fear is the number one reason why most of us do not live in our purpose. Because earlier I was talking about that comfort zone. And so many of us have these fears hindering us from taking those steps of faith, or a leap of faith, to really seeking purpose or doing it. For example, you may have, and I can tell you, I've worked with women all over the world, and I see it. I see the fears of women who know that they're being called to do something else, but they already have a successful career, because most of my clients are already successful women, but they're being called to higher, which is purpose. And so now, when it is you have to probably leave that job, that gives you that stable personal economy, that job that gives you that salary every month, and you're thinking of the bills that you have to pay, the mortgage and the car and this and that, and you're thinking about, oh, and my husband doesn't have a stable job right now, or this and that is the case, or he may be in school. A lot of women are struggling, struggling because they're continually settling for a life that is not theirs, which is the imposter life, because it's not your life. You're not supposed to live that life. You're called to more. But we're so comfortable where we are that we're afraid to live it. The fears are hindering us. Then there's a fear of so many fears of being judged, because people might think you're crazy. Right? The fears of that you're going to fail because I've never seen this thing done before, so I may not be successful at it. There's the fear of rejection, that people will not accept what I'm going to do, especially when it comes to family. People are very overwhelmed with that. There's so many different fears of being criticized, because people will look at you like, like who you think. Sometimes when you do things, there's so many fears that are hindering us from stepping there, because fear and faith cannot operate in the same realm. So if you're going to trust that God has a purpose for you, that your greatest success actually is aligned with living in your purpose, because in Jeremiah 29:11, the Bible is clear. He says, I have an expected end for you. I will prosper you in it. And so if we are living that life that is aligned with purpose, success is guaranteed, it is sure. But then how do I go from the fears that this is something I've never seen done before, This is something that will cause me to not have a reliable income because I don't know how it's going to turn out. But that's what faith is all about, trusting that the God who's calling you to this purpose, he says he already has the plan for you. And so many of us are trying to create success on our own. And one of my favorite texts, my favorite text is Jeremiah 29:11. But one of them that comes real close to it is Proverbs 18:16, because it has a promise. It says that your gifts will make room for you. It will usher you into the presence of the great. And so many of us are on the job fighting to get promotions. We're fighting to get this job in the UNO, in places that we feel, it's high status. And we're fighting to get in rooms with people, not recognizing that if we just go with God's view, God's perspective, if we just go with the route that he's choosing, he says the gift, the purpose for which I brought you here into the world, if you're living in alignment with that, it will usher you into places that you've never been. It will take you into the presence of greatness because you're living true to who you are. You're living true to who God created you to be. And there is an ease that comes when you're doing what you're brought here to do. That when you're living in that divine alignment, it takes so much less effort to create success. You're doing the hard work, but you already have the success guaranteed. But it takes less effort because you're naturally motivated and inspired. And it just continues to it's just like the pitch lake. Nobody has to do anything for the pitch lake to continue to just breathe more and more and more pitch every day. It's like the sand lake I think it's in the Demerara, somewhere in Linden in Guyana. These things are just flowing naturally because they're just in the element. That's what purpose does. It allows you to just grow and flow because you're in your element. You're doing what you're brought here to do. And as a result of that, it will take less of it. And there's so many more promises attached to living in alignment with who God has called you, or what God has called you, who He's called you to be, and what He's called you to do.
What about the women women who have children and they have to take care of these children, meeting the needs of these children as far as school, meeting the needs of the husband who might be working, and they may have some sense of purpose also, but how would you advise them to be able to achieve all these things while still being human?
And that's again, sadly, our society has somewhat disrupted, and religion has disrupted that flow, because the truth is, when God comes, He's not going to ask you if you got married or if you had children, but He will ask you, what did you do with what I gave you? Your commission came before you for becoming a wife or a child. The assignment on your life was there before you became a parent, before you became a wife. But we've been socialized to think that, oh, I need to get married, or I need to have kids. No, that's not what you need to do. These are things, for me, I call these bonuses in life. These are not necessities. In other words, if it never happens to you, you've not lost out on life. But you lose out on life when you're not doing what God has called you to do, because when He comes, He's going to ask you. All of us want to live to hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant. What is well done is you doing what you were supposed to do, you fulfilling the commission on your life. And so we always speak of the Great Commission. Every single one of us have that Great Commission, but each of us have an individual mission to fulfill in the world. And that is what we have to give an answer to God for. And that's what we're going to hear Him say, well done or not well done. Because at the end of the day, even though you're a mother, even though you're a wife, we're not brought here just to serve and to take care of people. Women and men, each of us have been brought here on the same word. Jeremiah 1:5 is not speaking to the male gender. It speaks to male and female. So even though you're a mother or you're a wife, you still have a purpose, a greater purpose. I could say that definitely we need every single person in society, for sure. And not all of us are a university professor or rocket scientist or all of these other bigger names that you mentioned does not mean that these people are living in their purpose. It just means that they have big jobs and making a lot of money. That doesn't speak to purpose, because purpose does not speak to the money thing. Because most times the sad thing is we measure success by money. We measure success by the size of the house. We measure success by the car that you drive, or the number of certificates on your wall, but that is not a determinant of purpose. It's not a determinant of actually true success. It is only a determinant of our view of what success is. And our view of what success is very tainted by our indoctrinations, because we measure things we measure success by these means, and that is not a true measure of success. The success that truly matters is, am I doing what God is calling me to do and doing it well? It might not give me the big house that society says is a sign of success, because a lot of us are in our big houses, driving our nice cars, and we are unhappy. We are terribly terrified by our own lifestyles. We cannot sleep well because we have bills to pay, etc. So that is not a true measure of success. The status of our jobs, the titles that we have, are also not measures of success. Again, all of this is influenced by our own, again, warped societal views or indoctrinations of what true success is. And so whether you're a garbage collector or you're somebody who's sweeping or whatever you're doing, if you're doing what you brought here to do and you're doing it well, then you are successful. It does not matter what again, the stratifications are in society. These are man-made stratifications. We measure success by them, and truly, ironically, God wants all of us to succeed. The riches and wealth is not a problem, because I have no problem with any of these things, because I believe as God's children that we should be all of these things, but it's not a measurement of whether or not I'm actually living in purpose or I'm successful. Those success and wealth accumulation will come or could come when I am living in alignment with my divine purpose. But we cannot use these things to determine what success is or what purpose is, but purpose can bring us success in all of these things as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Pastor. So we didn't say that anybody wanted to do law or any of these things as purpose. We're saying that each of us need to find the path that God has for us, and that path may not be in these traditional jobs, which the caller was trying to allude to, which has nothing to do with the discussion that we had today, because God has a divine purpose. And like I mentioned earlier on, that purpose may not look like anything that we've seen done before. And so our minds are so fixed or fixated on traditional careers that we cannot think of God calling us outside of it. And so I'm going to just cut it. Every single one of us, male or female, have been created for divine purpose. And while we are here to honor God, we honor God by doing what God has called us to do. And we need to be intentional about pursuing it. Find out from him, Lord, why am I here? What am I meant to do? Because one day, every single one of us will have to give an account for if we were able to fulfill the divine mission for which we were brought into the world.
I want to thank you tremendously. We had a great morning. I want to thank Dr. Nadine Coggins for really being here with us this morning. I know you all have all enjoyed it. Remember to keep the program on the air. You can send your offerings at donation to RBC, account number 1000, that's 1 and 3 zeros, 791-703-24555. May God bless you, and until next week, may the good God continue to shine upon you, Alex, upon you and your family also, and may all good things that you desire, Alex, may God give it to you. Until,
thank you very much, Pastor.
Yeah, bye-bye, everybody.